Hello, morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. I have two American rye whiskeys, both aged at least 4 years. This is Templeton Rye, 80 proof, introduced in 2005. This is the new bottle from last year. It's embossed, got a fancy wooden cap, synthetic rubber stopper, neoprene stopper. It's Indiana rye, and it's bottled in Iowa, shipped to Iowa and bottled by Templeton at the Templeton Distillery. Yes, they do make whiskey at the Templeton Distillery, but this particular one is produced under contract in Indiana, okay? Also, it's not listed as straight rye. It's just rye, aged 4 years. So that means that they would be allowed to add caramel coloring to it to make it look darker and flavoring to spruce up the flavor. Now, that's just the fact of the matter. Now, here's Beam Rye, pre-prohibition style. Kentucky straight rye whiskey. No age statement, but we know it's at least 4 years because it's got no age statement. And any whiskey without an age statement has to be at least 4 years old for in the United States. Now, you don't have to put an age statement on your whiskey. But if you choose not to, you better make sure it's at least 4 years old. So there's the side of the bottle. James B. Beam Distilling Company, Beam and Clermont, Frankfurt. 3 cities, towns. Beam, Kentucky, Clermont, Kentucky, and Frankfurt, Kentucky. Fine, honored family recipe. This is 90 proof, 80 proof Jim Beam. And I don't know what the age statement on it was, but that was replaced by this one. Now, the old Jim Beam 80 proof rye had been on the market probably since the 1800s, but they just wanted to make a better one. Okay, or what they thought was better. New charred oak. Okay, so yeah, well, any to be a new charred oak barrel, so that's not saying anything remarkable. That's the law. Straight rye has to be aged in new charred oak barrels for at least 1 year. And all the rye whiskey has to come from the same state. Doesn't matter what state you make it in. You can make it in, produce it in Louisiana. I don't know if there is a rye whiskey produced in Louisiana. I know there's a rice whiskey. Can you believe that? Rice whiskey. A whiskey made from rice. Now, that's in southwestern Louisiana. There's rice fields, rice industry. So somebody decided to make a rice whiskey. Maxwell says, good morning, Ron. Good morning to you. Now you say, well, a rice whiskey couldn't be a bourbon. That's true. That'd be impossible. Could you make a straight rice whiskey? I don't think that's actually a class, but you could make it your own class of whiskey, your own type of whiskey. The class is whiskey. The type would be, you could say, okay, I'm going to make straight rice whiskey. Okay, it's got to be at least 51% rice, right? Aged in new charred oak barrels for at least 2 years. Then you have it. No coloring added, no flavoring added, and all made in the same state. No problem there. I don't think that would technically be an official legal title, but it wouldn't matter. It could be a marketing title because that's what it would be. Like craft beer. That's not a legal term. Craft beer is a marketing term. It does not mean anything under law. Anybody can call their beer craft beer. And if you ask 10 different people what is craft beer, you're going to probably get 10 different answers. Now, some people will come at me talking about, oh, well, you don't know because it has to be produced at no more than this many barrels per year. I say, wait a minute, where are you getting that from? Probably something they heard. Or they're getting it from an association. There's a trade association that made its own definition of craft beer. That's not a legal definition. That's just what they arbitrarily decided to do. And in fact, we know it's arbitrary because they've changed the rules over the years to fit the scenario. Used to be could have no corn or rice adjuncts. Well, then they decided, okay, we changed our mind. You can have that. All right. It can only be this many barrels per year. Oh, well, there was somebody that wanted to be called craft beer. So, oh, yeah, that's fine. You can have this many barrels per year. So it's like you could tell it's a meaningless term. But bourbon whiskey is not a meaningless term, and neither is rye whiskey. It has specific parameters that it must follow. Okay. Good morning to you, Maxwell, and the Russian Federation. So those are legal terms. Whiskey is a legal term. That's a class of liquor. Whiskey. Rum is another class of. Now there's different types of whiskey. In this case, we're looking at rye whiskey. They have to be at least 51% rye. What is the Jim Beam percentage? I never could find out. They don't say, so that's telling me it might only be 51% rye. Fine, that's fine, because it would still it would work. Could the other 49% be corn? It could be, wouldn't matter. Might affect the taste, either good or bad or neutral, but it wouldn't matter legally. It must be aged in new charred oak barrels for at least as long as you want to age it. Now, to be straight rye, at least 2 years, you see. No coloring, no flavoring added. So we know this one has no coloring and flavoring added. And we know it's all from Kentucky because it says Kentucky Kentucky straight rye whiskey. This has a beautiful bottle, isn't it? Sharp looking bottle. And it was $17.99. $17.99. Now this one was 18. My friend David got this for 18 bucks on super discount at a local store. Can you believe it? 18, but the normal price is about $32. Now the Jim Beam was not on sale. That's what they were selling it for at Total Wine and More. They just had it for $17.99. No special offer, no sale, just $17.99. Now I guess the price has gone up. I assume it has, because that was 2 years ago. And now we have all this JB inflation. It was just getting started then. It was really getting started in 21, I mean, and where it takes more dollars to buy the same amount of product. People think inflation means the prices go up. No, inflation means the value of the dollar drops due to an inflated supply of fiat money instituted by that outfit on the Potomac River. Okay. Unfortunately, most Americans appear to be innumerate and not understand numbers and not understand the concept of money. Honestly, most Americans seem to have this impression that money is some sort of occult magic. It's a magic. It's an occult. It's a secret doctrine. It's a Gnostic. It's a gnosis. You have to be initiated into a secret cult to understand money, but you don't really have to be that. You say, well, some of the people are running the money supply. Well, but money is not valuable because somebody declares it to be valuable. It's valuable because of its own merits. Okay. And when it doesn't have true value, then it doesn't have true buying power. And we see that the money does not have true buying power these days. Evidence being the higher prices, reflective of the money supply, not reflective of their own prices. How common is it to make whiskey with wood chips instead of barrels? I would say it's probably extremely uncommon, and it would not even legally be called whiskey because it has to be aged in barrels, wooden barrels. Doesn't have to be charred barrels, wooden barrels though. See, the barrels has to be a barrel. So I cannot answer that question, but I would think it would be almost, well, it'd be It doesn't happen. There is no such thing as whiskey aged with wood chips. You could have a liquor aged with wood chips, though. That would could it might taste the same as whiskey. I really don't know. Now these are both amber, so the appearance won't matter here. The 90 proof versus 80 proof should matter. The straight bourbon versus straight rye versus unstraight rye might have an impact, may not. Okay. You can add flavor into whiskey, but it still must have the aroma and flavor. What did they say on the government website? The aroma, flavor, and character generally associated with whiskey, whatever that's supposed to mean. I don't know how you back that up. But I know what the judge would say. He would say any reasonable person would know what that means. That's what the judge is going to say. That's the whole common law approach. You're not going to get up there and say, well, to me, whiskey tastes like tomato paste. Because then the judge would say, you're clearly not a reasonable person. Either you have some kind of attitude problem or you're mentally unstable in some way. Okay, so you can't really job the law on that basis. Okay, so aroma, appearance is a draw, and I've only had one tie in this series so far because I couldn't tell my partner I wasn't going to try. I've had one loss where I got it wrong, felt played, but everything else been victory. I love the smell of rye whiskey in the morning. It reminds me of victory. And but we're at a tie at this point. So now the cheers and now the taste. Oakiness. Vanilla. Sugar cream. I've said this repeatedly. I'll say it repeatedly in the future. Whiskey tastes like sugar water to me. Could be some candied fruit cake fruit. That kind of comes in the Mylar bags. They're like freeze dried or whatever they are. I don't know how they do it, but that it tastes kind of like that. Now, maybe dates, the cherry, yeah, something like that. Cherries, I don't know, something like that. No, I mean, so this is pleasant. Now, I had a whiskey. It's all gone now, but I had a bottle of whiskey from Weston, Missouri, McCormick Distilling. You probably heard of them. The Holiday Distillery, but the company is McCormick Distilling. And there's a blended whiskey called Triple Crown, which in their view is like a gourmet blended whiskey. But if you look at their website carefully, it says with oak extract. You say, what the? Yeah, it's like an extract you can add to the whiskey. It makes it taste more like oak. You say, but that's cheating. Yeah, it is cheating, but you're telling the people that you're doing it, so it's not. You're not being deceptive because you're saying it up front. I'm adding flavoring from oak extract. It's like, oh, give me a break. Would I prefer a more pure whiskey? Yeah, I would. Oh, well. Now this has some oakiness here. This has oakiness, and it doesn't taste like they added any oak flavoring or anything. It's just like charred oak. Yes, sirree. Now, and we know it's at least 4 years old in the new charred oak. Would you be allowed to age rye whiskey in a used barrel? Oh, of course. You just wouldn't be able to call it rye whiskey. You could call it blended whiskey, high rye American whiskey. You could call it that. It might be 100. If it was 100%, you could call it 100% rye grain American whiskey, but it wouldn't be a rye whiskey technically. It would be a American whiskey by virtue of aging in a used barrel. Now you say, well, that's a highly technical difference. It's true, but that's the law in the charred oak versus the uncharred oak. Would it taste good? I really couldn't tell you that because it's not such a product, but they probably exist somewhere in this world. Now, do both of these taste good? Yes. Are they both enjoyable? Well, if they taste good, you would assume they're enjoyable. Yeah. Are they unusual, strange, or outstanding or remarkable in any way? No. It just tastes like regular old rye whiskey. It's like it's just plain old Lipton's tea, like they said, like she said in 1968. But I think the scene was supposed to be taking place in 66. But anyway, it's just regular old Lipton's tea. The main difference here is the charred oak. Jean-Pierre says, good morning, Mr. T. Headed to work. Good idea, Jean. I worked 8 hours yesterday. Thankfully, it wasn't very hard. But then my job is usually not hard. Somebody asked me that, you like your job? I said, yeah, it's easy. Plus, I get to lift a lot of things. I like manual labor more than non-manual labor. Right? I taught high school for over 20 years. Well, some junior high too, you see. But I taught public school at public school for over 20 years. And it was fine, but you don't really get to lift anything. There's no manual. A lot of it's sitting in an office or classroom writing up lesson plans. I just hated all that tedious paperwork. The teaching was fine, but then it was hurting my voice. That's why my voice always sounds gravelly and strained, because over 20 years, I strained my voice irreparably. Yeah, that word. What they call that? Irreparably. And you know this, man. So I was like, man, as soon as I can get out of here and retire, I'm out, because I can't stand coming home every day and my throat is killing me. It was a sore throat, but not from being sick. It was a sore throat from strain. And somebody said, you had to yell at those kids. I said, it wasn't yelling. You just had to talk. They don't know any history. You have to tell them. How are they going to learn? By getting in groups and discussing it? No. They learn by you telling them what happened, or they read, theoretically, if you think they're going to go home and read the book. Some of them will, most won't. But that was the only way that they could learn the history, is we explain it, teach it, right? You say you got to let them get it together in small groups and collaborate on the history. How are they going to collaborate on something they don't know? They're going to teach each other history and they know nothing about it? That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense now, would it? Now, we would get in small groups if it was some special purpose for the history lesson, but not to learn it. I was the only one allowed, I'm meaning to say, I was the only one able to do it in that setting. And I know it worked because my students always had the highest test scores on the state end of course exam. Always did. And they'd always come tell me, oh, they did great, the principal and them. I say, yep. You know why they did great? Because they knew it. I would teach them. I would teach the test. They would give us at the beginning of the year, here's the things that are on the test in May that they have to know. Or in December, because we would do half. It was like college. Half your class would last August to December, and then you take new classes last in January to May. You understand? But it was a course. So theoretically, you could graduate high school in 3 years, but the school wouldn't allow it because they wanted to keep that minimum fund money from the student. They used the students as a source of money. And they would always say, well, how can we motivate them? How can we motivate them? I said, why don't you let them graduate after 3 years if they choose to, not force them to? Oh, and they would always say they won't do it. I said, yeah, they will. I mean, some will. Oh, no, they didn't like that idea. But I wasn't a fool. I knew they didn't like the idea because they wanted the money for the students. They want money, money, money. They were like, in The Godfather Part 2. So why do you come to me? Why don't you go to a judge? She said, because I need money. Right. I think this is Templeton. It's a little simplistic, and I think Templeton is simplistic. Is it bad? No, but for $32, it's terrible. You see what I mean? Something got my throat or my windpipe. Why would you want to pay $32 for something that's no better than something you could buy for 18? My answer would be, I know I wouldn't. Or in fact, isn't really as good. So I'm saying Templeton, and it's a loser again. Templeton, and it's a loser again. You say, oh, you got some kind of axe to grind with Templeton. I certainly don't. Well, I do actually. And the axe to grind is that it's priced $32, but it tastes like $18. So yeah, I guess that's an extra grind. But then that's what my friend David paid for it, $18, and I didn't pay for it at all. It was a gift. So hey, so winner for me. But I mean, I know what it costs, you know. So yeah, pretty bottle. Aesthetically, it's an A+. Taste wise, oh well, you could still make the argument that it's an A, like a 93, something like that, because it tastes really good. Most rye whiskeys taste really good. These people get on the internet talking about, oh, that's terrible, that's terrible, that's terrible. It's like, nah, that stuff's not terrible. I don't know what y'all talking about. Just because you got tattoos and a bar setting in the background, which might just be, you know, on a green screen, whatever, that doesn't mean you know what you're talking about or that you're being fair. And you ever notice this little trend with whiskey reviews? It's always two males. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. It's always two men, middle-aged, with music playing, and they're always doing this little back and forth banter, and they got tattoos, and usually they got, it's like a certain style that they'll use that I don't know who they started copying off of, but they all copy off the original. It's probably a copy of a copy of a copy. They use the same format. And it's like, give me a break. Can't you be original? But I guess you got a copy. And then there'll be like one straight guy and the other one's like the foil or something. And they're like, yeah, I see what you mean, you know. And then it's like, this is scripted. Okay. Burley Sullivan says, you cap. What does that mean? Cap. All right. Time to close it out. So is Jim Beam Rye a better product? It's clearly better, but yet it's way cheaper. Some people like to slag on Jim Beam. That's another thing I don't get. They'll just say, oh, it's no good. 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 And I'm unanimous in that. Okay, it's no good. You say Jim Beam's no good. The whole line is bad. It's all bad. It's all bad. And I saw a guy the other day talking about it was no good. But his taste challenge was invalid. Why was it invalid? A, he was doing 6 different whiskeys. Makes no sense. Secondly, he's looking at the whiskey. He's got the bottle next to the glass, Glencairns, of course. Am I jealous about Glencairn? No. I broke all 4 of mine. Thank you, Johnny Neely, for the gift. But those things were so thin. I've seen some other Glencairn that was thick. They wouldn't break so easy. I thought that's the ones I would buy. But they're paper thin, and so they break you could look at them wrong and they'll start cracking, you know. They'll shatter. They're like the Rolling Stones. They shatter. Okay, but life is just a cocktail party. But really, if you're not going to do a blind taste test, don't be dogging on the whiskey, talking about it's no good, and you looking at the bottle and claiming it's no good. Do it blind, not with 6 of them in a row. Do one-on-one, do a tournament. Let's see how bad it really is. You may not be able to tell it apart. And then what you're going to do? Then what you're going to say? Then where you're going to go? Then where you're going to hide? Then what's going to happen? Yeah, it's really good. I think. Do I get money from Jim Beam? I wish I did, because I would make a Jim Beam video every day. Unfortunately, I never did get a single thing from those guys. But Jim Beam, y'all could call me. But I always say Jim Beam products are good based on the fact that, to me, they taste good. And they're enjoyable and they're well made. So, yeah. I think same thing for Jack Daniels. I don't quite like it as much, honestly, but I do like the Jack Daniels products that I've tried. Um, that's another no. You're not supposed to like that unless it's one of those real fancy ones. But Evan Williams, don't even say that. You get run out the room. You be excommunicated if you like Evan Williams. But those are really good too. Ezra Brooks. Well, from the minimal amount I've tried, I really liked it. That's sort of like the Evan Williams is like the poor man's Jack Daniels, and Ezra Brooks is the poor man's Evan Williams. I don't know. I shouldn't be even saying it. All right. Anyway, you say, what about Kentucky Gold? Oh, that's just the poor man's whiskey. I mean, it's just like literally you're poor. Okay, but no, but all kidding aside. But as a comic, in all seriousness, I think that I'm very happy that I got it right. And I'm sorry, Templeton, that you keep losing, but that's not really my issue because I got no horse in the race. You're not my team. I don't root for Iowa teams. On the other hand, I don't root for any Kentucky teams. No knock against them. If the Hawkeyes are playing, I'll pull for them, I guess. Unless they're playing a Louisiana team, obviously I would not. Kentucky teams, I mean, I would pull for Western Kentucky or what's that team? University of Kentucky. I know them, but I'm talking about doggone. Oh, but as Kentucky State University, that's Division II. Still no knock against them. Small schools, they have a role to play. Okay, but anyway, thank y'all and take care. And we'll be back soon for another losing endeavor for Templeton.